Cold Front Mafia, we're back for another preview. Bills take on the Bengals in Orchard Park this weekend at Highmark Stadium on Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. And before we get into the film study and our keys to winning this game, this upcoming game against the Bengals, we're going to go and take a look at a recap a little bit of this past Sunday when the Bills went into Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh and laid a stomping on the Steelers. But please, before we get started on that also, please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Follow me on TikTok, X, and Instagram. Help me get this thing moving. The algorithms and all these platforms, I don't know what they want to see, but they want to see subscribers. They want to see likes. They want to see all this stuff. Helps everybody else get a chance to take a look. If you like what you see and hear, when we're going through film and predictions and or recaps and whatever it may be, highlights of the NFL, what's going on with around the league, whatever it is, please do me a favor. I would appreciate it very much. Doesn't cost you anything. It's nice and easy, nice and quick for you to do. I appreciate that. Okay, so as far as the Bills and Steelers are concerned, last Sunday the Bills took on those said Steelers, and after a shaky start, very first possession of the game, the Bills got the opening kickoff, and after what looked like a promising first 3-4 plays, after a 3rd and 8 conversion to a 13 or 14-yard comeback route to Brandon Cooks, the newly added wide receiver in the locker room for the Bills, converted that third down on a beautiful comeback route. Josh Allen lasered a ball in there. Looked like they had some chemistry as well. That ball was out before Cooks made his stop for the comeback. But anyway, good first down, getting Brandon Cooks involved, a couple of handoffs, nothing huge. After the first play, which was a 15-yard bounced around first down run by James Cook, it looked like we were going to do something, and then Josh Allen throws an interception. A little slant route to Gabe Davis. The route was jumped. In my opinion, people are blaming Gabe Davis a little bit because no one ever wants to blame Josh Allen no matter what he does. I'm not saying Josh Allen's bad. He is fantastic. He's one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the NFL, and maybe ever when it's all said and done. You can make that argument, and that argument can be even more valued when his career is over. We'll see. But the point that I'm trying to get at is I'm not blaming Josh Allen. I'm not saying that he needs to be replaced. I would never say that. I don't think there's anything he can do to make me say that. However, there are times when he does not make perfect plays. There are instances where he can be blamed, especially if he is Josh Allen and he's making $55 million a year and he is the franchise quarterback and he is the city's figurehead in Western New York, not just the city, all Western New York, maybe upstate New York. We should hold him accountable as well. So that's my take on the interception. I don't think that was his fault. Just me. I'm sorry. I think it was his fault. It wasn't Gabe Davis's fault. See, you guys got me falling into the trap as well, just by default. Can't be Josh Allen's fault, so it's not. Oh, boy. So I don't think that was his fault. Anyways, really sluggish first half. And at the end of the first half, after that interception, we punted a few times. Then James Cook, a complete unforced error, fumbled the ball. He got hit behind the line of scrimmage, bounces it out towards the sideline, and then literally knees the ball out of his left hand on his own. His own knee just stripped the ball out of his left hand. So that wasn't great. Pittsburgh Steelers recover that football on the Bills, I want to say 38, 40-yard line. Their best offensive drive, maybe second best offensive drive of the entire game, right off of that turnover. They go down. They score 7. Touchdown. It's 7-0. Bills do squeak out a field goal towards the end of the first half. Again, just real sluggish football first half from both teams. Excuse me. So we go into halftime 7-3. First possession of the third quarter now, because remember the Bills got the ball first. the Pittsburgh Steelers on their very first play from the line of scrimmage strip sack Joey Bosa. It was more of a coverage sack, though, because it wasn't bang, bang. Joey Bosa's motor and his second effort come into play. Aaron Rodgers tries to break the pocket just ever so slightly, a little shuffle step to his right. Joey Bosa breaks his block, comes hammering down to Aaron Rodgers' back, doesn't see him, ball goes flying. Christian Benford, who was actually blitzing off the edge, CB blitz, picks the ball up, runs it into the end zone. And then the Bills never looked back. So at that point, it was 10-7. Following possession, because on that sack, Aaron Rodgers busted up his nose, bleeding, had to get bandaged up, sit out a couple of plays. So we get that fumble, scoop and score, touchdown, Patriots. Steelers get the ball back. Mason Rudolph is under center now. And I want to say 3 or 4 plays later, he throws about a 15 to 20-yard out route to his tight end, Washington, over his head, floater. CB 47, baby. Same guy that just scored the touchdown 4 or 5 plays earlier. Receives the ball, keeps his toes in. Interception. Going the other way. Score on that drive. It was over. So we ended up winning that game in convincing fashion. Didn't look like it was going to be that way for the first half, but it ended up being well in our favor. Final score was 26-7. Steelers only scored off of that one unforced error turnover and nothing after that. Their offense looked horrible. But you got to give credit to the Bills as well. Their defense looked pretty good. So a little bit of both maybe, but the defense really stepping up. The defensive backfield is shutting people down like nobody's business. And it's been that way for weeks, so it's not a tiny sample size at this point. It is nothing new, okay? Christian Benford's playing out of his mind. Trey White is even playing out of his mind. I think he's given up 2 or 3 receptions in the last 8 weeks or some crazy number. Not 8 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. I don't have that stat in front of me. I apologize. But he's playing out of his mind. Cole Bishop, great season. He's teetered off a bit, but I don't know. I got to tell you, Maxwell Harrison. I mean, we're giving up the least amount of passing yards of any team on the planet Earth right now. So you can't argue that, right? I mean, you can't do anything other than say, okay, tip your cap and admit it. Admit the fact that the Bills are giving up 163 yards per game through the air, which is number 1 in the NFL. That's a secondary thing. It's not a defensive line thing, okay? Because the pressures aren't flying off the roof or off the shelves and through the roof, okay? Average time to pressure right now, the Buffalo Bills are the 3rd worst. Average time to get pressure on the quarterback, 3rd worst at 2.85 seconds. In the NFL, 3rd worst. Okay, so that's not it. It's not that we're just getting after the quarterback in some ungodly fashion, and that, that's why the secondary is doing so well. Just not it. It's simply the secondary shutting people down, both in man and zone. I think they're playing great scheme defense, and their run defense, unbelievable. So here's the deal. I'm just going to recap the rest of this game, and we're going to move on. Excuse me. They held the Steelers to the best day that the Bills have had all year as far as rush defense goes, okay? And at the same time, they ran for more yards against the Steelers than anyone ever has inside that stadium. So pretty tough to argue that all-around football game for the Buffalo Bills this past Sunday. Pretty tough. We ran for 249 yards. They ran for 58. You know what I mean. Bills, 249. Pittsburgh, 58. 108 total passing yards by Pittsburgh as well. Team passing yards, 108. Not good. Not good at all. That's if you count the sacks. 117 through the air. So, great game by the Bills. Great win. Not much to complain about whatsoever except for a slow start. That's it. That's it. Fantastic job. Now, the Bills didn't really listen to me in every aspect. I said that my keys to their game were hit the middle of the field offensively and pass efficiently, which they really didn't do much of. Now, when they did pass, the middle of the field was certainly there. Dawson Knox and Ty Johnson and James Cook led the team with 3 receptions each. So we did speak briefly about that. It was not outside the numbers necessarily. Really glad to see Keon Coleman score a touchdown. I've been completely outspoken on Keon. I think he does not get the credit that he deserves, and I think that he gets lambasted and brought down more than he deserves as well by the media and social media and a lot of places. I don't think that he has I think that he follows in or he gets shed in a light of being a top first round draft pick when he shouldn't be. He was the Bills' first pick, but it was second round, and it was, early second round. But I don't think he should have been drafted there, personally. I think that he's not a true number 1 wide receiver, and he shouldn't have been asked to be that guy, and therefore he's being compared to true outside number 1 receivers, and I don't think that's fair. I think for what he is, he's fantastic. That's me. I think he's fantastic for what he should be asked to be. A physical possession guy who's not asked to just run go routes. And quite honestly, he's not too bad in open space either. But I digress. We also said that we need to stop their blitz. There was virtually zero pressure on Josh Allen for the 23 dropbacks, 23 pass attempts, I should say, plus his rush attempts, only a few of which came dropping back to throw. There was a lot of QB designed runs. But stopped that completely. So did a good job there. A lot of chip blocks. Tight ends staying in, chipping, then releasing. Running backs doing the same. Then we wanted to stay away from the turnovers, win the turnover battle. Looked horrible in the first half. We were down 0-2, and then bang, bang, 2 possessions in a row, bang, bang. We tied that turnover margin. Brought it at least back to even in 0, and that was all that was needed. I do feel that we showed something that I don't know if really is going to show up on the box score that much, but the Bills decided to run a lot of 11 personnel, but with the wide receivers split real tight to that offensive line, not out wide. Terrell Shavers did an absolutely phenomenal job run blocking, as Khalil Shakir was lined up just inside him quite often as well. And the Bills did something that I don't remember seeing much at all, if at all, this year so far, which was running 2 running backs in the backfield simultaneously when one of them is not Mr. Gilliam. They had James Cook and Ty Johnson in the backfield numerous times and in different situations and scenarios. I really don't remember if this has ever happened this year, but regardless, we can look that up, I guess. But let's take a look at one of these. I'm going to show you this. Here's an example of the first one. You'll see James Cook to Josh's left, Ty Johnson, Josh's right. You have Keon on the bottom of the screen. Looks like Brandon Cook's on the top, and then Dawson Knox. So you got 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. Take a look at this. Tell me if you think that this first route looks familiar. There goes Ty Johnson, 26, through the left C gap, up the side of the field on a wheel route. Keon Coleman's doing a little slant in. Here we go. There's Ty. He's headed out up the field. He's got a linebacker covering him now, which generally speaking you would think is he would be wide open, but he was not here. Good pursuit angle by 55. But then you're going to see James Cook also peeling out. Now, it's 1-to-1, man-to-man up top. If he wanted to give a shot at Brandon Cooks, he could do that. However, Josh Allen makes a phenomenal read here, turns, rotates his shoulders, and lets it rip to James Cook. Look at this separation, okay? So much focus on Ty Johnson out of the backfield allows James Cook to catch this ball when he's 8 yards wide open at the point of contact. Yes, he makes somebody miss, but even if he didn't, they would have picked up 7 yards before he was even touched. He makes one guy miss, which he does 90% of the time, whether he's carrying the ball or receiving the ball. And they get about I don't know what this was, 14-yard play. I think that this is going to happen more because I'm going to show you another example as well of Ty Johnson and James Cook both in the backfield, specifically in a peculiar situation. Okay, so here's the other example. Let's get out of here. Here comes another one. What do we have here? 4th and 2, by the way. James Cook, Ty Johnson, Gabe Davis up top. There's that tight split. Terrell Shavers we were talking about, and then I believe this is Dawson Knox. It's either Dawson Knox or Jackson Hayes. We'll see, or Hawes. We'll see here in a second. Take a look at this. What do you suspect would happen if you see this? Ty Johnson is almost fullback, 4th and 2. Fill in the box, Pittsburgh did. Converted. Simple fullback dive, basically, right up the gut, right behind McGovern and Osiris Torrance and David Edwards. Watch this handoff. And I want you to hone in on something here. Because James Cook is in the backfield and another threat of a run, which is Ty Johnson, look at these 4 defenders. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defenders on that line that are actually you could really make a case for 4 because that left tackle is really pushing out that D end up there. And then the other defensive back is pretty deep. But take a look at those 4 people we circled. They all follow James Cook. If that's Reggie Gilliam in there instead of Ty Johnson, do any of them follow James Cook? Or, I'm sorry, do any of them, do they care about Reggie Gilliam? Maybe not. Because we probably wouldn't have handed it off to Reggie Gilliam. But in this instance, you got Ty Johnson in there who's a threat with the ball in his hands. We've seen that time and time again. He's a threat. So I think these are 2 good examples of putting James Cook and Ty Johnson in the backfield and what a threat that could be. Ray Davis also had the best game of his season by far. He ran for more yards than he had all the games combined leading up into the Pittsburgh game. I think he had 4 or 5 10 to 13-yard runs. Huge day for Ray Davis as well. But I like that one there. I like that one. Watch these defenders. They're following James Cook. Following James Cook, as they should. I mean, I'm not blaming them necessarily. But now, what does this do? What does this play right here do? I tell you what it does. It's going to be on the radar of the future teams that we played. Maybe not this week against Cincinnati, but in the future. And if both of those men, James Cook and Ty Johnson, are in the backfield, well, that defense is going to have to play for that exact play right there, that fullback dive. They're going to have to scheme up for it. They're going to have to throw some extra bodies on them because if it's 4-on-4 helmets, Ty Johnson's getting 2 yards 100% of the time. But now, if they have to scheme for that, and they don't play so soft following James Cook, those 4 defenders that we just showed, well, then what happens? Then a play-action game becomes into play. Then a design QB run comes into play if all of those 4 guys fell down the line of scrimmage after that handoff for Ty Johnson. It opens up the playbook a lot, especially in those short yardage situations, which I'm really happy with. I think that's fantastic. So that's the Steelers game as a whole. I think that dual running back set is going to work nicely. And actually, I think they run a lot of that duo zone again that they ran against Pittsburgh consistently and quite well, as we alluded to. I think they can run some of that against Cincinnati as well. Outside runs against Cincinnati are huge. They give up the fourth most outside runs of anybody in the NFL. Just going to run you down a couple statistics. Excuse me. On the Cincinnati Bengals. We're on to the Bengals now. Preview. What do we think we have to do? Okay. They're the worst the worst defense in the league as far as giving up total yards at 410 a game. They give up 410 yards per game. So that's worse than the NFL. They're last in passing yards at 257. They're 31st in rushing yards. This is all given up, by the way, at 153. 27th in QB pressure rate. Only 30% of the dropbacks do they get a pressure. 31st in sacks as a defense with 18 through 13 weeks. 29th in total time to throw for the quarterback, which is 2.81 seconds, which you can take that one maybe with a little grain of salt. Some people like to look at time to pressure, which is also in the bottom three. They're last in yards after reception, yards after catch given up. They're the lowest blitz rate as a team in the NFL, which is only at 19.7%. The fourth highest, like we said, outside run given up, which is 56%, by the way. I don't think we actually labeled that for you. Their tight ends, they're I think, fourth worst in defending the tight end through the air game. They're pretty decent at keeping wide receivers 1 and 2 in check, but then when it gets to the slot receivers and the tight ends, really no bueno. And that's how they've been getting penetrated up and down the field every game all season long. 410 yards a game given up. For instance, as an example, when they played the Patriots tight ends combined between Hunter Henry and Austin Cooper, 10 catches, 154 yards, and a touchdown. And those two guys are not volume and yardage type tight ends. Good in the red zone, have been for their careers. Possession guys, big body, box out type guys, yes, but not 154-yard guys. So that's just 1 point to the Bengals defense, and where I think if Dalton Kincaid plays, which we should hear some more here shortly, hopefully, about injuries. But if Dalton Kincaid plays, he's got the potential to have an enormous career game. Career game. Yep, that's right. If he doesn't play, still Dawson Knox, who was tied for the most receptions on the team against the Steelers, is still going to be plenty involved. And Mr. Hawes, Jackson Hawes, why not? The guy's open. Watch some film. He gets open. He's obviously not the first look a lot of times, but he is open, my friends. I'm telling you that. So he might have a game too. And then slot, depending on what set we come out and run, are we going to go jumbo? Are we going to go heavy? We're going to go 12 personnel? I say we do. Buddy of mine, Dan Mitchell, says we don't. Dan Mitchell says we go 11 personnel and we let the ball sling up and down the field. I say one of my keys is to go 12 personnel and send 2 tight ends out into routes. Not even necessarily have them stay in, because their defense doesn't get any pressure on the quarterback regardless. So we don't need to chip and keep protection in like we did last week against the Steelers. So this week, I think we need to run heavy personnel, 12 personnel, right? So you're going to have 5 linemen, quarterback, which is 6, 12 personnel, meaning 1 running back and 2 tight ends on the field. That's what that means. 1 running back, 2 tight ends. 5 linemen, quarterback is 6, 2 tight ends is 8, running back is 9. Then you have your 2 wide receivers. You either split them or set them both on the same side. That doesn't matter much to me. What matters to me is getting our tight ends into space and out into routes, because the linebacking crew of this Cincinnati Bengals defense, to me, is their weakest link in coverage. They're big bodies. They're strong men. I think they look lost when they drop back into zone coverage, which they predominantly run zone coverage, as does every team, really, when you think about it. But more so than not, the Bengals are in zone coverage. And those linebackers, they just look lost, I got to tell you. So that's my first key. 12-man personnel when your tight ends are both running routes. I do believe that the Bills will continue to try to run the football because, again, they're 31st in rush defense with yards given up per game at 153. So we can probably run the football. But the only reason why I say one of my keys personally is not going to be to jam the football down their throat again is because I think that if I'm the Bengals, especially after what the Bills did to the Steelers last week with running for 250 yards, I think the Bengals say, that's not how we're going to lose, boys. The one thing we're not going to allow to happen is James Cook to run for 100, 150 and another 35 or so out of the backfield. I think they're going to be filling the box up and doing whatever they can to stop the run. And as weird as this seems, I think the Bengals actually are going to take the stance of, we're going to have Josh Allen beat us through the air. How many times does that happen? Doesn't happen very often, but that's kind of how this season has gone between the wide receiving core, that room, the wide receiver room, and Josh Allen's woes with running himself into sacks potentially, obviously turning the ball over many more times than he did all of last year already. It's kind of been the most consistent thing is James Cook in the rush offense. So I think that the Bengals say, listen, if we got a chance to win this game, we need to stop James Cook. We need to stop that rush offense from going berserko because when it does, we won't get on the field at all. And our best quality is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and potentially T. Higgins if he plays. I think that's another huge factor. If he doesn't play, totally different than when he does. And if he does, he's in concussion protocol right now. It does seem as if Trey Hendrickson, their defensive edge rusher, is still not playing. He hasn't played in quite a while, and I think he's doubtful at the moment. But Higgins is more questionable. We'll see. If their best thing is Joe Burrow and their offensive weapons, then you would think they would want as many possessions as possible to try to keep up with the Bills' offense. And by allowing the Bills' offense to run the football up and down, they get 6 to 8 yards per carry and just move the chains methodically and have an enormous time of possession like they did last week against the Steelers. Nobody beats the Bills if they do that. I don't care who they are. No one beats the Bills, or any team for that matter, specifically the Bills, if they have 41 or 42 minutes of possession and they run for 250 yards. You're not going to lose a football game that way. I think it's pretty much impossible. So the Bengals stop the run, make Josh Allen throw the football all over the yard, and then make it a shootout. The Bengals want this to be a shootout. Damn it, buddy that I just got off his live stream says he thinks it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think the Bengals are going to score some points, but I don't think they're going to score 30. That's my take. It's hard to keep them down to 0, but I think they're going to score somewhere in the mid-20s. So, second key. First key was First key was 12-man personnel on offense. Jumbo, and keep the tight ends out in routes as viable options to receive the football. That's key number 1. Number 2, I think we need to again stop Joe Burrow from passing to his tight ends. Sorry, I got a little tangled up here. I think that my second key, cold front second key, is to keep a safety bracket over the top of Jamar Chase. I think we keep, if T. Higgins is playing, Maxwell Harrison. This is going to be weird. Maxwell Harrison on Jamar Chase and Benford on T. Higgins. T. Higgins, a little bit bigger body, strength. I think that'd be tougher for Maxwell Harrison to man up against and stay with. And I think that Harrison's speed is more in line with Jamar Chase's attributes, quick, twitchy, in and out of cut guy. But always have the man over the top for additional help. Always have that floater, that Cole Bishop, Jordan Poyer over the top of Jamar Chase to give Maxwell Harrison help. So, Keenan, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, that's going to be real quick. Literally, and I'm telling you, actually, you know what? We're going to show you an example. But literally, if there's one deep safety, Joe Burrow is throwing the ball over the top to Jamar Chase. He's attempting it. He's letting it rip, letting it fly. It's just that's what he does. That's what they do. If he sees one deep man, especially if he can eye him off to the opposite side of Jamar Chase, if he can look opposite of Jamar Chase and get that deep safety's hips turned away from Jamar Chase, he's then swinging back and letting it rip, giving his guy a chance almost 100% of the time. Literally, that's just what they do. Not saying that that's successful almost 100% of the time, but that's what they say. If you are one-on-one on the outside and there's no deep man, let it rip. It's coming. It's coming. That's what the Bengals do, and they've been doing that for a long time. Let's take a look at an example. Okay, here comes that example. Here's Jamar Chase, week 1. All right, I want to show week 1 because that's just about the last time, one of the very few instances we have when Joe Burrow's under center because he was out for so long. All right, pause it here. Jamar Chase on the bottom of the screen. You have man-to-man coverage, what it appears. You have one deep safety in the backfield against the Cleveland Browns. This is Denzel Ward, one of the better corners in the league, yes. But the point that I'm making is there was no safety help. So when there isn't safety help, this is what they do almost all the time. Joe Burrow reads that, wants to make sure that the one slot corner is actually going to follow the slot receiver. Once he sees that, which we'll pause here, he sees that corner staying on that receiver versus backing up to a cover 2 or 3. Now it's just Chase versus whoever. In this instance, it was Denzel Ward, one of the better CBs in the league, like we said, but it'll be Benford or Harrison. Quite frankly, Denzel Ward literally runs that route for Jamar Chase. He never gets beat. He's never even parallel. He's in front of Jamar Chase the entire time. He's running the dang route. And the ball still gets thrown deep. This is my point. He throws over the top. If there is no safety help, once he sees this, he's throwing it 100 out of 100 times, it seems. Look at Denzel Ward. Look at the bottom of that screen. He is literally running the route for Jamar Chase, and it doesn't get any better. Chase doesn't get past him either. He runs that route for him. He stays a yard or two ahead. Oh, what perfect defense. But it doesn't matter. My point is he's going to throw that ball almost every single time in the event that help is not there. That's just what they do. That's what they do. Hence, key number 2, safety help over the top of Chase. Bridge him, double team him, whatever you want to call it, all day long. All day long, unless you have confidence enough. Benford or Harrison or Trey White, whoever will be lining up against him, to do what Denzel Ward just did with no help. I mean, that's ballsy, in my opinion. But with no help, sticking with him and not allowing that go pattern to come down successful for the Bengals. Safety help. Number 3, key number 3 to a victory here. Establish the run. Establish the run and stop the run. What do I mean by that? I think the Cincinnati Bengals run defense is a little under their run offense is a little under appreciated by a little bit, and I think they're coming on strong here in the latter half of the season so far. Okay. By comparison, they are not obviously they're nowhere close to the Bills. Okay. The Bills are the number one rushing offense in football, and it's by a decent margin over the Bears, but it's not that big over the Bears. But the Cincinnati Bengals are 30th in the league at 88 and a half yards per game running the football. But I will say this, that the Bengals have put up some pretty decent games rushing the football here lately. The beginning of the season was really rough, but late. Their last 3 games, they're trending in the right direction. Last week, they ran for 128 yards against the Ravens. Week before, 120 yards against the Patriots, one of the better rush defenses in the Patriots. And a week prior to that, 105 yards to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're trending in the right direction. And albeit when they're at 88 and a half yards per game for the season, okay, if you're trending with well over 100 yards the last 3 games, you're going in the right direction. Joe Burrow does not like play action. He said publicly that he does not like to put his back towards the defense, which obviously, I mean, I get it. Although play action can work so well, and for a quarterback like him, I think it'll work even better. But he doesn't like play action. So when the man turns, he's handing the ball off. And if we can make sure that without stacking the box with 8 people to slow down their run game, then we know what's happening. We know what's coming. There's no question mark because he doesn't like play action. So if he turns, he's handing it off. If he doesn't, he's not. Pretty simple. If we can stop the run, they're going to abandon it. Like I said, they want this game to be a shootout. That's really their only chance. The Bengals. So if it's not a shootout, they're kind of, they're behind the 8 ball, so to speak. They're not in the driver's seat. They do not want this game to slow down and come to a long drawn out possession by possession for both teams. We want to know what they're doing. If we can stop the run, then we have an idea of what's coming. Then we can scheme accordingly. I think the scheme is to be playing a decent amount of man coverage, like a cover 2 man. That's my take. Obviously, you play zone defense. Joe Burrow is a professional quarterback. He's very good. He's proven that over many, many years. He's fantastic. If you don't get pressure on him naturally and you put zone defense out there, generally, he's going to find an opening. He's going to find an open receiver. That's why I say man. I say man, press that man, and somewhere around that 2.8 to 2.9 second mark, hope and pray that you get that pressure on Joe Burrow, which you can do. Our defense is not getting pressure on anyone lately, and they can't put pressure. They can't keep anyone, away from their quarterback. So it's kind of like tale of who's going to be worse right now. Because, again, they give up the 4th least amount of time before pressure on their quarterback. 2.56 seconds time to pressure in the league thus far this season. That's their offensive line speaking. And Joe Burrow and the receivers and everything else. But 2.5 seconds. Now, when it comes down on the defensive side of the ball, which is us, well, let's see here, are at 2.85 seconds time to pressure, which is 3rd worst in the NFL. So we don't get quick pressures. They allow quick pressures. We don't pressure anybody. They allow pressures. Where's that pendulum going to swing? Which direction is that going to go? Natural pressures, not creating pressures by heavy blitzing. I think a blitz now and again, well-timed, well-devised blitz, never hurt anybody. Showed last week Christian Benford blitzing off the edge. He didn't even make the sack. But that extra pressure, he picked up the football on a sack fumble for a strip. For a scoop and score. So timely pressure is obviously never a bad thing whatsoever. He also blitzed and stuffed the run beautifully earlier in the game as well. So if we can stop their run, it's basically owning the line of scrimmage. Stop their run, know what they're doing, get natural pressure on him because of the fact that their offensive line is very susceptible to giving up pressure. Staying a little bit in man, I think, will be fine. Now, on the flip side of key number 3, which is stopping the run and running the football, I don't think that we're going to run for 250 yards because I think they're going to put a lot of onus on stopping that run. But I also don't know that they have the personnel to be able to stop it at a rate that's going to completely shut down the Bills. So I think if we manage 4.5 yards a carry, between 4 and 4.5 yards a carry, and it's a threat and we don't completely run away from it, we use this throughout the game, I think it's going to set up the openings like we were talking about to the tight ends. And somebody in the slot, whoever that may be, is that Keon and Shakir? Is it just Shakir? Are they going to be tight to the line? I don't know. But 12 personnel is what I'm looking for. So I think being able to run the football will then allow the receivers in the tight end position to open up even more, get those linebackers to bite down a little bit. Not even necessarily with play action, although play action will work against this team. 100% it will, against their defense at least. Joe Burrow doesn't like play action when he has the football in his hands, but their defense likes to give up big chunks against play action. I'll tell you that much. I think that the idea of those linebackers seeing that run is not going to be forgotten or abandoned will play just as big as running effectively or not, if that makes sense. They're still bad enough in coverage, pass coverage, that even if we're not play actioning, just running the football will keep them in that half of a yard that it'll take to have separation. They can't cover anybody. So we're not talking about massive gaping holes trying to make 2-3 additional yards of separation, but just with the understanding that the Bills will not be going away from the rush completely for the last 2.5 quarters of a football game, to me, gives me enough confidence that the linebackers will take that extra quarter of a second to drop into their zone and try to cover one of our tight ends. So that's key number 3. Basically own the line of scrimmage, run the ball, and stop the run. Last key number 4. And this is going to be a little scary. In years past, this wouldn't even be a question mark, really. But this year, the Kansas City, Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills have turned the ball over both 17 and 18 times. So the Buffalo Bills have turned the ball over 17 times and the Bengals have turned it over 18. Now, they've created 15 apiece. So their margin is the Bills are -2 and the Bengals are -3. This was a key last week too. And I think it's going to be a key for me, for Cold Front, for Dustin, for the rest of the season for the Bills. When we turn the ball over more than the other team that we're playing does, we don't win football games. And that's just the bottom line. That's the Bills' Achilles heel this year. In their 4 losses, they've turned the ball over 11 times. Okay? That's a problem. And now in their 8 wins, they've turned the ball over, I think, 5 total. So that includes last week of 2. Now, the way I say this is not what it has been. In prior years, specifically last year, the Bills led the NFL in turnover margin. I think it was a plus 24 or 23 or 26. That is enormous. Now, this year, they're -2, so they've literally given the ball up more times than they've taken the ball. That's an issue, but they're right in line with the Bengals. Middle of the pack in the NFL. Now, bottom half. That's a problem. And with these offenses, with these quarterbacks, Joe Burrow being one of them, especially if his weapons are there. In terms of T. Higgins, I mean, obviously Chase, but you have Yoshiva, up-and-coming guy who's going to get his fair share. He's probably going to get his targets, especially if we do a good enough job shutting down the big boys. You got Mike Gesicki. He's kind of a journeyman tight end, but I like him. Kind of like that guy. Still a player, still balling out, still running routes, catching the ball, moving. I don't think it's going to be an easy task, but what will make it almost impossible is if you turn the ball over 3 times and you don't get a turnover. Even a team that's 4-8, obviously Joe Burrow hasn't been playing all year, but even a team that's 4-8, you turn the ball over 3 times, you force them to turn it over once, you are not going to win that football game 80% of the time, most likely. So let's be honest. Even though they have the worst defense in the NFL statistically, that does not mean that Josh Allen can just go out there and immediately say, you know what, I'm going to have a career game. Put it into his head that he's going to throw for 390, 400, 4 touchdowns, run the ball all over the place. I don't think that needs to be in his mind. Rush the football, make that be in the forefront, establish the run, and yes, you'll have your day passing as long as you take what's given to you, like you did last week. I don't care if Josh Allen throws for 163 yards a game from now until the end, like he just did. If we are winning football games, what else does it matter, folks? Bills Mafia, Cold Front Mafia. If we are winning football games, do we really care if Josh Allen throws for 163 or 363? I'm sorry, it wasn't even 163. It was 123. 40 too much, which is 30% of an increase. Oh, boy. 123 yards. Who cares? Who cares? They won the football game 26-7. Why? Well, it wasn't looking too good when they were down 2-0 in the turnover margin, was it? First half of that game, they were down 2-0 in the turnover margin. They were losing 10-3, and they were lucky. 7-3. They were lucky. Pittsburgh had no business even scoring a point against that defense on Sunday. No business scoring a point, yet they were losing at halftime, and they'd only scored 3 points. The Buffalo Bills, team that averages over 28 points a game, had scored 3 points at halftime. Why? Because they were losing the turnover battle 2-0. That's it. That's literally the only reason. The defense was playing phenomenal. And they turned the ball over. They coughed it up, and they threw it to the other team. You just can't do it. So that's a huge key. Again, I think it will be every single game from here on out. And I know it's kind of cliche. That's what everybody says all the time. Yeah, I get it. But this team, more than anybody, the only thing that can happen with this team is when they shoot themselves in the foot. If they figured out the run defense a little bit, watch out. Watch out for the Bills. This is December, and this is their time. This is when they start really playing football. December, January, cold weather. This team is built for cold weather. Everything that a lot of people want to argue with and kind of complain about with the wide receiver room and not having weapons and not spending money, not having a guy with 15 sacks. On the defensive side of the ball, well, there's not enough money to go around, and this team was built, the way that they decided to build it was to win games, A, against the Kansas City Chiefs, and B, come December, January, in crappy, freezing cold, snowy, rainy, nasty weather. And look what happened in Pittsburgh. It was very cold, and it was quite windy. Completely flattened that football team. He ran for 250 yards. You stopped the run for 58 or whatever it was. What else do you say? What else do you say? They're literally built for this time of year. So for that reason, I'm excited. I'm not saying Cincinnati's not, but they're not. They're not. They're built for like a dome, if I'm being honest. They're built to score 43 points a game and hopefully give up 38. And the rush defense isn't as good as it could be, in my opinion, although it's trending upwards like we spoke about. It certainly is. So if we can stop that, we're going to give ourselves a much better opportunity. Okay, listen, I think that's going to wrap it up. I appreciate every one of you that are staying till the end. Really, thank you. Those are the 4 keys for me for this week's game against the Cincinnati Bengals. 1, 12 personnel on offense, tight ends running their routes and getting involved in the pass game. Number 2, put a safety over the top in help of Jamar Chase all day long. I'd like to see Hairston on Chase and Benford on Higgins in the event that Higgins is playing. But more important than that, just get safety help out over the top of Jamar Chase, whoever is guarding him, because Joe Burrow will let that rip 100% of the time. Number 3, run the ball and stop the run. The Bengals rush offense is trending in the right direction. Over 105 yards the last 3 games when they only average 88.5 for the season. They're trending upwards, and that is small increment increases in those last 3 games as well. And when I say run the ball, remember, part of that key was not necessarily to run for 250 yards again. Oh, that'd be great. If we do that, then we're winning this game by 20, by the way. 25, maybe. Just like last week. But establish the run and keep going back to it. Get your 4 yards, 5 yards. Let them know it's there. That's all. That's all. Let them know it's there. So those defensive backs and those linebackers are just cheating up maybe a half a yard to a yard, cheating up just a little bit, which is going to open up those tight ends that we were talking about. That would be this would be my game plan. And then key number 4, turnover margin, turnover battle, win it again. By winning, if it's even, okay, then you're probably going to have generally the same amount of possessions, right? If it's even. I don't want to make it even. Even's better than losing. But win that turnover margin. Get yourself an extra 1 or 2 possessions throughout the game. We can win this game. Anyway, appreciate all of you. Like I said in the beginning, please do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. We want to keep this going. That's really going to help me out with continuing the coverage and paying for all these subscription stuff, man. Oof. It's not cheap to really dive into football and get film and do all this other stuff. Anyway, I love it. It's passion. Appreciate all of you. And go Bills, cold front. We'll talk to you soon.